There's two words that are about to be removed from the English language, and they are these. Very soon, you are not going to be able to say these words. The media are going to be encouraged not to use these words when reporting, and I would guess that anyone saying these words in speech online or on social media or YouTube, for example, will have their content removed. And that's because these two words are drawing a significant amount of attention right now. And there's a good reason for that. If you look at just the data, no commentary, no one else's voice, no nothing, let's pick US data. The global level of heart attacks were always the leading cause of death, right, across the planet. But those across the planet were all going down on a state of decline. The number of people dying from heart attacks on a regular basis was in decline per age group at every level. And that's changed. Since the pandemic, heart attack death rates took a sharp turn and increased. And there's a really significant part in that data, which is that the most significant change, the most significant difference between what might be expected and what's actually happening is in the ages 25 through till 44. And these individuals are not usually considered high risk of heart attack. And I just want to give you the data, so no commentary, from the US in the second year of the pandemic, observed versus predicted. So predicted would be what is kind of usual, obviously. It would be kind of the normal rate given all of the things that happen to people in a lifetime. So adults aged 25 to 40, the rates of heart attack are 29.9% higher than should be normal, than is predicted. They're full 29.9% higher from the ages of 25 to 40. And in the next age category, 45 to 64, they are 20% higher than what would be expected. So we have heart attack rates in young people 20% or 30% higher than expected, and no one is really willing to talk about it. So when we see and hear reports of this, no one's really saying much. And of course, there's some stuff being thrown out there in explanation, by way of explanation, and a lot of it is credible. Obviously, we can understand how delays in ambulances might cause problems if you've got a problem with a heart attack. If there's a delay in getting you to hospital, clearly that's going to be an issue. Some other reasons given by the science: the virus might accelerate issues to do with heart conditions. But they're saying it's like nothing we've seen before. So these numbers are like nothing we've seen before. Another explanation given by the scientists quoted in this article, which contains the data, says perhaps it's due to the stress of the pandemic. So all in one go, they're saying it's like nothing we've seen before. Maybe it's due to stress, or maybe it's due to a combination of other factors, or maybe the virus acted strangely. Nobody is pointing at any other reason why there might be a 30% increase in the number of 25 to 40-year-olds having heart attacks. And more importantly, no one's allowed to talk about it. Now, if I may, without commentary again, I want to just mention a few names or cases. Clearly, everybody's looking at the NFL and Damar Hamlin and what happened on the pitch. And I hear the commentary from the mainstream saying it is a very dangerous game. Yes, of course it is. But then I see other things, two journalists that died suddenly in Qatar, and that was completely hushed up and no one talked about that. Have a look at the Irish journalist, Brian Hutton. Have a look at Dax Tejera, age 37, exec producer, ABC. Was at a restaurant with his wife, walked out the door and died of a heart attack there on the street. BBC also lost a 28-year-old Erica Gonzalez who died overnight. And many other examples. And you could say, oh yes, these are all people in the news. And that's kind of also the point. The reason you're hearing about these individuals who also passed away is because they were in the news, because they were known faces, because people reported on them. Just think if we've just lost 2 ABC staff members in the city of Stuttgart in Germany, they just lost 8 staff members from one government office building, aged 40 and 50. If these people are talked about because they're in the public eye, just think how many people aren't being talked about who aren't in the public eye. And my big question is to the British Heart Foundation, which is, where are you in this communication void? And why is it, an honest question, that the people in the media that we're supposed to listen to, or the professionals that we're supposed to hear from on Newsnight or other information programs, no one is mentioning this or talking about the specifics of it, and more specifically, why there's 30% increase in heart attacks in adults aged 25 to 40. And clearly my views on this are not going to be terribly popular and are not going to make me very popular. You would argue they will make me a target, and I accept that. I want to just bring up one last thing, which is not just that there is a communications void, that everybody seems to have gone silent, that the charities seem to be working to silence this, that the medical professionals in the Lancet and other places are not looking at any other reasons why this might have happened, just maybe the stress of the pandemic, or maybe the virus acts strangely for some people's hearts. There's no other reason they might be looking at. But even worse, it almost feels to me as if there's some sort of communication campaign to normalise what's going on. And I want to draw your attention to this, which is a commercial by the British Heart Foundation. And I'm unsure whether this will remain in this recording, but it's essentially the video of a young girl collapsing during a football match. And to an untrained eye, mine, I feel like I'm being told it's perfectly normal for this kid's heart to give out when they're playing sport. If I'm able to, I'm going to pop that here so you can see for yourself. But the big handful questions remain. The data shows something very strange is going on, particularly between 25 and 40, where numbers are crazy high compared to normal. And that isn't just American data, Australia, UK, globally. The second part is that the science doesn't seem to be looking to explain these crazy numbers, other than saying maybe the pandemic was stressful to people's hearts. And obviously, people missed appointments and missed checkups, obviously. But does that explain this discrepancy, which the scientists say is like nothing we've seen before? And then if you look at the individual names that are associated with people who had this happen to them, well, how many more people are out there who aren't in the public eye that you know in your workplace where this is happening? And then where are the very people who should be really raising the alarm about this silent, and if anything, as I would argue, are affecting a kind of communications campaign in order to try and normalise what's going on? And frankly, if I may, to add personal commentary at the end of this, I am actually very tired of the words anti-vaxxer or conspiracy theorist, because it was okay to play to those to a point, because it didn't matter what you're called. It doesn't matter all my life what I've been called. But the point is that all the people that were marginalised, called names, left out by their family and friends, or labelled anti-vaxxer, many of whom, like me, have had plenty of other vaccines, who have allowed children to have the vaccines they were supposed to have during those programmes at school. These names are wearing very thin, because it's always been the case that you try to pin a label on someone to silence them. It happened to me decades ago, and it will happen again. But if this isn't talked about, then who is going to pick up the baton? And I remain with my question, which I will bring to the British Heart Foundation, is where are you on all of this? And how can you possibly justify an advert or commercial that looks to normalise a young child whose heart stops when they're playing football? Keep your eye out. Watch these words. Very soon, they're going to disappear from the language that is allowed to be said here in the UK and across the rest of the world.